Okay, I've got here a Stan's Durasync Freehub. This is for the XD driver, but the basic construction is the same whether it's the HG or the micro spline. Today's video, we're going to show you how to service this by taking the bearings out, putting new bearings in, and cleaning the pawls and whatnot. Okay, so basically in step one, we just need to remove the end caps on the hub. This should be done by being able to grab it, pull it off. You're going to need to do it on the other side as well. If they don't want to come, then you can use a piece of rubber on there. You can use a strap wrench, and if it's really tough, then maybe a pair of pliers. And then when you get the end caps off, what'll happen is you'll be able to pull the whole, this is the axle and the Freehub body will come out all together. So now we need to separate these. Okay, so if you're fortunate, you'll be able to take your axle and push it and then pull it out of your Freehub body like this. There's a chance that it will be stuck in there. In that case, you'll have to tap it out. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, there's basically only one way to get this axle out, and that's by having to tap it. So what you're going to need to do is find something that you can use to tap the axle out with from the top, and a place that you can support the Freehub from the bottom so that you can do that. I found here a 10mm socket. It actually sits down in there just like that. It's going to be perfect for tapping. And then I'm going to support the Freehub body with a piece of PVC pipe that will allow me to not worry about damaging it and be able to tap it out. So you get it like that and just tap, and it'll start going. And just a word of note here, you want to make sure that whatever you're using will float down inside the bearings here, because you don't want something wider than the bearing and then it cause damage later on. So just keep tapping until the axle pops out the bottom. Okay, after you get the axle out, there's a little rubber seal or grommet in here that you can just pull out with a small screwdriver. That should reveal bearing here. And the way that these Durasyncs were built is there's one bearing out here, and then to accommodate larger cassettes, there's two bearings down here. And so the easiest way to do this is to remove the outside bearing first. And if you look, there's a sleeve down in there, and you can push on that sleeve and kind of scoot it over, and then when you do that, you can see like the sleeve is exposed there. You can flip it over from this side and then get a screwdriver on the edge of the bearing, and you can pound it out that way, or you can use a bearing puller, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, before we go any further, we want to remove the pawls so we don't lose them or damage them. In order to do that, we need to remove this white retaining ring. You can do that by sliding a screwdriver up underneath here, being very gentle with it. Come off like that. Then each of these now can just slide vertically out, vertically down. Just like that. And if you want to, you can remove those springs as well, though it's not entirely necessary. But this will keep these safe and out of the way as we work on removing the bearings from here. Tapping out that spacer is by far the easiest way to do it. So I'm just going to show you how. Put a screwdriver down in there until you find the edge of the bearing, and then you tap it. And then as it starts to come out, you want to make sure that you are rotating around, so you're going to have to put your finger in there and move the sleeve over a little bit so you can get to the other side of the bearing, and then get it some more. And then go back and do the other side. See that it's slowly making its way out. We just keep doing that back and forth until we get it to pop. And you're going to need to be able to see the bearing now is flush with the bottom of the Freehub, so we have to support it up a little bit so there's room for the bearing to come out. I'm using a headset spacer to do that. And there you go. Comes out And then you've got the sleeve there like that. So in terms of pulling this bearing, I wanted to show you two potential ways to do that I've used before. One of them is the poor man's method. Found this 1/2 inch concrete anchor that can be used to slide down in here. And then when you get it in there, you can tighten this down, and it creates tension there on the end, and then you can use it to pull the bearing out. When I started doing more mechanic work, I ended up investing in a proper bearing puller, where this allows you to sit this down inside of here, and then you spread it using this. And then depending on the situation, I have a slide hammer that we can use, or it can be easily adapted to just a simple like press situation where it pulls the bearing out like this. I'm going to show you what that looks like. But you have some options. You can tap this bearing out from the backside using a screwdriver. You can use kind of a homemade blind bearing puller here using a concrete anchor, or I'll leave a link in the description for a slide puller kit that maybe is a little easier to work with. Okay, so we slide this in here like this. I'm going to screw this into here. This will make sense here in a sec. Slide all the way down here to the end. Okay, so what that'll do now is allow me to apply pressure here. And as I do that, the mechanism on the inside will grab that bearing and slowly pull it out. Let's see how this works. You'll feel it give way when that bearing comes loose. And then there's the Freehub body. It's got a spacer down in there that you want to set aside. And then there's the bearing there. So that's the outer bearing, and now we got to work on the two inner bearings on the inside. Okay, after giving this some thought, I've decided what the best way to do is to press the bearings from the backside out. And there's a couple ways that you can do this, but they all involve the same principle, and that is that you need a spacer of some kind. This is a headset spacer that will sit here to allow room for the bearing to come out. And then you need something to be able to press it through from this side. This is just a socket wrench. It happens to be a 15 mil. It sits right in there on top of the bearing. And then I've got this just long screw kind of device that I'm going to put through like this. And then brace on this side here. This might not actually, that washer's a little too small, so I got to get a bigger washer. But you understand the principle, and then by screwing it, it'll push the bearing out. I have a bearing press that I'll probably use, but kind of for the do-it-at-home mechanic, and you're looking for some ideas, this can be easily pieced together for a few dollars from your local hardware store. Okay, I said I had a bearing press. This is what this looks like, and same idea here, physics of force. Just gonna press until the initial bearing pops out. See, it's easily going through. This is a very simple process. That was the first one. See it right there. Feels like crap. Glad I'm replacing them. Then just repeat the process for the next one. That was it. Now we have just the shell with the springs in here. So what we'll do is clean this all up. Time to reinstall these. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and then we'll come back when it's time to reinstall the bearings. So with the bearing press, you're just gonna find a corresponding die. We want the go on the top here. Run that through. You put the corresponding die on the other end here. It drops down inside there. And then just slowly twist, and you can see the bearing starting to set there. When it bottoms out, you don't have to go crazy on anything like that. It's just bottomed out. So we can back this out and then put the bottom bearings in. So you want to make sure that you get the spacer back in there. Set it in there like that. Sometimes these spacers can be a little bit tricky, and if you have a way to center it on there, you can go ahead and use that. But otherwise, you drop your next bearing down in there like this. Put the die on there, and then we'll press it. You can just see the bearing starting to drop. So easy. Put a link in the description to a decent bearing press. Won't break the bank. You don't need to go over tighten with it because you have that spacer in the middle there, and that spacer will have a little bit of play in it, so you don't accidentally preload or overload the bearings, because when you put the wheel together, that spacer will take up some of that space when you tighten down your axle. Okay, so now all we need to do is put the third bearing in. That's it. Bearings are in. Now all we got to do is put the pawls in and reinstall it. Now when you get them back in, it's a little bit tricky. You have to pre-squeeze them a bit to get them to slide back in. And then once it gets started, then you can go ahead and sit them down in there. Just like that. That's how you can remove the springs and clean up underneath them and clean the springs themselves and then put them back. So when you're ready to put your pawls back in, you slide them in opposite of the spring there. You might have to coax it in by pushing down on the spring a bit. I realize my fat thumbs are in the way here. So if you need a little bit of help, you can get a screwdriver. Help push back on that spring to get the pawl to set like that. And then if you want, you can then re-engage that spring, pushing it out a little bit. You do that for each of these 6 slots, and then we'll grease it. Okay, once you get your pawls all in place, we got to put the retaining ring on the top. It's just a matter of holding one side and then running your thumb around the outside there to get it to sit all the way down. And then that's in place, and this is basically done. Now we have to put it back in the wheel. I want to talk. So as we put things back together, what we're going to do is start with the axle and the Freehub body and try to get these to come together. You remember how difficult it was to remove it. So we get it to go in. Then, so once you've got it to set there, there was a small spacer ring that came here. So put that on. It goes on there next. Now we can switch to the wheel. Okay, now we're ready to install. So make sure again that you've got your spacer there. We're going to insert this into the hub. And then this can be a bit tricky. The pawls, when they're sitting out, won't let you engage. So you have to try to find a way to kind of get those to sit a little bit and get as many of them pushed down as you can. And then providing slight pressure, if you rotate the hub, you can get those pawls to sit down in there. Like that. Okay, and then after you get that on there, you need to remember to put your dust ring on. Snap that down into place. And then it's time to put your end caps on. Okay, now you've noticed that the system is a bit loose. The axle can slide in and out. And if you're not careful, what you'll do is you'll try to install this hubcap on the back side, and when you do it, it'll push the whole system out, and you want to avoid doing that. And the way that you can do that is by laying the wheel on the ground. So if I got the wheel on the ground, then I can apply pressure against the axle as I push it down like this. And you want to push on it hard, because what that's going to do is center the axle inside the hub and give you proper alignment. And that is how you service, change the bearings on your Stans Durasync Freehub body. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now go wrench on your bikes.